people think relationships should be easy. That if you just either find the right person, it'll be easy, or if you just get the person you're with to somehow be different than they are, then it will be easy. And I think what we don't realize, and I've been saying this for years, is that lifelong, pair-bonded, monogamous relationships between members of the opposite sex are not in the human DNA. They're not how our species survived for 1.5 million years. And we've been trying to do it for about 10,000 years or so, and not very successfully, because if it was easy, we'd all be good at it. We wouldn't need self-help. We wouldn't need marriage therapy. We wouldn't be getting divorced. We wouldn't have breakups. We wouldn't all hate our exes if this shit was easy.
Dr. Robert Glover, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I have been anticipating this conversation ever since I saw it on my calendar, and I'm incredibly excited that you're sitting here in front of me, and I finally get to ask all the questions that I had as I was reading this book 15 years ago, as I shared with you before we hit the record button here. And then again multiple times since then. So just thank you so much for being here, for me, for my audience, and for carving out this time.
Josh, thanks for the invitation. I think we're going to have fun.
We're definitely going to have fun. All right, I'm going to hit it right out the gate, Robert. And Robert, from here on out, that's good?
That's as good as anything. I joke, my wife, who speaks very little English. She's Mexican and speaks Spanish. She calls me Dr. Glover. Dr. Glover. So, but I actually prefer to be called Robert.
All right. I bet you hate when people.
She calls me a few other things as well. But yeah, it's funny to hear your wife calling you Dr. Glover.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. You don't get Dr. Bob at all, do you? I hope not.
Actually, when I first got my doctorate, I kind of did, because I kind of liked the Muppets. There was the veterinarian on there with Dr. Bob, and the female veterinarians on there. Oh, Dr. Bob. And then, of course, there's Dr. Robert, a Beatles song, old Beatles song, about a drug dealer. But if you listen to it, it sounds a lot like what I do professionally without the drugs. So, Dr. Bob, Dr. Robert, Dr. Glover, I get called Dr. G, I get called Doc, I get called the GOAT, I get, or my wife calls me Jefe as well. So,
all right.
Just depends on the mood and the audience.
All right, man. Well, listen, I'm going to jump right into one of the fun questions that I like to ask, which is, assuming that they haven't read this book, right? No More Mr. Nice Guy. What is something that my audience thinks that they understand about being a nice guy, but they might be getting wrong?
Okay, you twisted that. You sent me a couple questions in advance where you actually put a little twist on it. Well, let me give you the first answer, and then I'll go with your twist.
Great.
Because your audience, my best understanding, is primarily entrepreneurs, people invested in growth of various forms. And I'm primarily a relationship guy. Mm-hmm. My doctorate's in marriage and family therapy. I was a marriage therapist for over 25 years. Been married 3 times. So, I'm all about, the relationship aspect of things. Now, with that said, I've also been an entrepreneur since 1988, long before they called it entrepreneur. I haven't gotten a paycheck since 1988. I haven't worked for anybody but me. So the first answer I was going to give, based on when I read your question before we got on the air, was what do people think they know that they don't? And I had to ponder that. And really the answer that came to me is that I think people think relationships should be easy. That if you just either find the right person, it'll be easy, or if you just get the person you're with to somehow be different than they are, then it will be easy. And I think what we don't realize, and I've been saying this for years, is that lifelong, pair-bonded, monogamous relationships between members of the opposite sex are not in the human DNA. They're not how our species survived for 1.5 million years. Now, we've been trying to do it for about 10,000 years or so, and not very successfully. Because if it was easy, we'd all be good at it. We wouldn't need self-help. We wouldn't need marriage therapy. We wouldn't be getting divorced. We wouldn't have breakups. We wouldn't all hate our exes and post on social media that there's sociopaths, narcissists, and borderlines. If this shit was easy. That's not easy. It's because it's not in our human DNA. But what I tell people, that if we approach relationship, doesn't matter if heterosexual, bisexual, open, monogamous, gay, lesbian, if we approach them consciously, they're powerful personal growth machines. They will grow us like nothing else, primarily because they're not easy and they don't come easy. So it's not a matter of, well, if I just find the right person, I'll live happily ever after. Or if I get my current partner to quit nagging me or quit doing this or quit doing that or start doing more of that. Or if I just find a different one that's better than him or her, then it will all work out. They don't. They don't. Now, there's some luck involved in finding somebody that you do get along with better than others, but there's a lot of work. So that's what I would tell people. My first edition of the answer to that question, and what I would say about nice guys. If somebody identifies as a nice guy, as I did, if you'd asked me 35 years ago to tell you about me, I'd say, well, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I'm different from my father. I'm different than all those jerks that the women complain about. And I wasn't. I wasn't nice. And really, what kind of started the wake up call was my second wife. A couple years into our marriage, she just basically confronted me. She says, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. I can't trust you. You don't tell me the truth. You don't follow through on what you say. You can treat me well, and then you're mean to me. She said, I'd rather be with an asshole, because at least an asshole treats me bad all the time. She said, I've been there. But she said, you treat me nice, and then you hurt me, and you put me down, and you embarrass me. And she said, you need help. If you don't go get therapy, I'm leaving. And I was already not very happy being married to her. But she was beautiful. She was absolutely gorgeous. People would say, that's your wife? And I go, uh-huh. She's gorgeous. I mean, I liked that, right? and so I went and got therapy because I didn't want to lose her. And I actually went to therapy trying to find out why me being a nice guy didn't make her appreciate me, didn't make her happier, didn't make her want to have sex with me. She announced on our honeymoon, aren't you glad now that we're married, we don't have to pretend to like sex anymore? Thought, I wasn't pretending, but I was a nice guy. I can fix this. I can make it better. But the truth is, we nice guys, those of us that go along to get along, try to not be a moment's problem, seeking external validation, external approval, no boundaries whatsoever, not good at making our needs a priority, making everybody else's needs come before ours. We think we're being good people. And we may be good people, but the truth is it typically leads to us being less than honest, less than authentic, less than transparent, passive aggressive, all kinds of not nice things. So to answer your question, if you think you're a nice guy, you're probably not.
All right, we're going to unpack all of that. Before we do, I do have a follow-up question, to the answer you gave to the first version of the question. And you said that people think that relationships should be easy. Now, I have a very tumultuous relationship with the word should. And
Okay.
So I'm curious how you view the word should in the context that you gave. Relationships should be easy. I should be more successful. I should get more sex. I should X, Y, and Z. In that context, how do you feel about the word should?
Yeah. Well, probably many of us have kind of heard the phrase, stop shoulding on yourself. Shoulds are usually driven, let's say they're typically driven by something broken inside of us, wounded inside of us, and or some externalized expectation that we've internalized. Because if you think about it, if we're perfectly happy in our own skin, if we are living life on our terms, if we're choosing how to go about living our life every day when we get up, we probably wouldn't have any shoulds. We just get up today and go, okay, here's what needs to be done today, or here's what's in front of me today. And we go, okay, today I'm going to get up and do my meditation and get something to eat and take the dog for a walk and go to the gym and come home and work on my book, do an interview, and there's no should involved. It's just like, that's what's in front of me today. And I've lined my day up in the way that I most enjoy living my life and make the biggest difference. So it's usually the should that are coming out of something that we'll call neurotic guilt. And neurotic guilt is distinguished from healthy guilt in that healthy guilt is when you've violated your moral code. You've done something that you don't believe is a good thing to do. Maybe you don't believe lying is a good thing, but you told a lie, or you don't think you should steal, but you stole something, or maybe you lost your temper with somebody, and I don't want to be that way. Well, healthy guilt, either it gets your attention, it helps you course correct, it helps you go make amends to the person that perhaps you've harmed, and it resets you on the direction that you want to go. Now, this, of course, requires us to have some kind of internal moral code, not an externally imposed moral code that says you should behave this way.
Right.
You should go to church. You should believe in God. You should vote, Republican. You should, all the shoulds. You should call your mother every Sunday, and you should want to call your mother every Sunday, right? Those are all the shoulds that are coming from outside of us. But if we have our own internal locus of control, our own internal roadmap that we've consciously charted for ourselves, there are no shoulds. We just get up and we follow that roadmap every day. But it's when neurotic guilt always comes from some externalized rule system, usually in the state of what I'll call a fused emotional system. It could be family, can be church, can be culture, can be community, where it says, because you're part of this family, this church, this community, you should. People like us, we do this. Mm-hmm. And so in family system is like, well, you're my son, therefore you should. You belong to me, therefore you should. Or between partners, well, you're my girlfriend or you're my wife, therefore you should. You belong to me. Or, the woman is, you're my husband, therefore you should. So, the man might be, see, you're my wife, you should want to have sex with me when I want to have sex. The woman might be, well, you're my husband, you should listen to me talk about my long, boring stories about all the conflict I have with every woman I know in my life. You should want to. And so that's where neurotic guilt comes from. Like I said, it's not only that you should call your mother every Sunday, you should want to call your mother every Sunday. So typically, if we're feeling guilt and we've not violated our moral code, we're going to feel the shoulds. It's a neurotic guilt. And neurotic guilt doesn't serve us. And it doesn't really serve the people that we think, well, I need to do this to make her happy, or she's going to be mad at me if I don't do this, or I'll get fired if I don't do that. That kind of what are we going to call it? Our paradigm for life, our way of determining how we live, how we show up, that doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve anybody else, and it doesn't serve the world.
Yeah. You mentioned there at the very beginning of what you were saying, about breaking, and so I'm curious. From my observation, most men, they don't realize that they're stuck in these nice guy patterns until something breaks.
Yeah.
What is the earliest warning sign that a man is headed into this nice guy behavior before that damage shows up?
A friend of mine used to do a weekly podcast called Before the Train Wreck. And I always loved the title of that. How do you recognize this shit before it ruins your life? And the answer to that question, because I'll give you a broader answer, but to answer it more specifically, how does it first show up? Honestly, it often first shows up that you're a nice guy, that you're not getting laid. You're not getting laid.
So you're talking like adolescence or moving into
that's
early 20s.
That's where you should start getting laid, is as a teenager. But it could be you're not getting laid as a 22-year-old and you've never been laid, right?
Got it.
Or you're not getting laid as a 35 or 45-year-old and you've been married for 5, 6, 12 years and you're not getting laid. Okay. Again, I've never given this specific answer to the question, but here's why. Because people do ask me the general question: where do people first come to me? When do they find my book? When do they discover my interviews? Where do they first come to the realization, oh, that could be me? It is almost always in some relationship crisis. Now, again, because I'm a relationship oriented guy, a marriage and family therapist for many years, doctorate in marriage and family therapy. It's just my orientation of kind of how I view the world, how I walk in the world. It's all about relationship. The book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, 9/10 of it, or 8/10 of it is written from a relationship perspective. The final chapter is more about life and work and things like that, of how nice guy syndrome shows up. But that's because my agent, when I got him, said, you need to write more about just life in general, not just relationship. And I thought, well, that could be a second book. And he goes, well, let's put a chapter in this one. So we did. But most of it would have just been primarily about relationship, because that's me. That was my orientation. That's where it showed up for me, that I was a nice guy and it wasn't working. So it typically, what I see is, when guys reach, he's early mid-20s and can't get a girlfriend, can't talk to women. Women don't seem interested in him. They say they want a nice guy, but they go with the jerks. And he can't get a woman to want to be his girlfriend. He can't get laid. It can be maybe early in relationship where, he can get with a woman, but then about 2 or 3 months in, he reverts to stronger nice guy patterns, and the woman loses interest in him and moves on and ghosts him or disappears. It could be that he's in a relationship 6 months, 2 to 3 years, and he and his partner are struggling all the time, right? One crisis after another, one fight after another. They can't work anything out. It could be that he's in a longer term relationship that's either about to end. He's entertaining divorce. His wife's brought up divorce, or they've split, they've separated, they're in divorce court, or he just got divorced. Then they go looking for answers as well. So I found for a lot of nice guys, they go looking for answers when relationship stuff isn't working. And they may find lots of answers. They may find red pill. They might, find John Gottman. They might find any number of things. But that's when a lot of guys find me, when their relationships aren't working. Occasionally is when they realize they're underperforming in work and career, that they're procrastinating a lot, or they're, not taking any risks, or getting out of their comfort zone, or getting passed over, or, they work way too much and get way too little reward about it, or they just got laid off. And, it can be work and career, but for many men, it often is around relationship.
I imagine that before it gets to that point, they do their fair share of rationalizing why this stuff is happening.
Of course, we all do.
Right.
Everybody does. When stuff doesn't work, we try to figure it out. But of course, like, there's Einstein that says something like, the thinking that got us into the situation we're in is not going to get us out of it.
Yeah.
We just go into our own echo chamber and start trying to find answers, or we might Google it, or now we go to ChatGPT or Perplexity and ask them, how come this isn't working for me? And then now we've just opened up a whole new echo chamber that's just going to start giving us information that all, whatever the algorithm says, they asked about this, give them more of it, right?
Yeah. It's the equivalent to, like, if you have a stuffed nose, looking up the symptoms on Google, and it telling you basically that you have cancer, right?
There you go. And now all of a sudden, everything else you're going to read is how to deal with nasal cancer, right?
Yeah, right. That's interesting. So what are some of these ways that you've seen that people rationalize, that's because I have to imagine it, they're not saying to themselves, it's because I'm a nice guy. It's in spite of them being a nice guy, right? They think that's the stuff that should be getting them ahead. So like, what are some of the rationalizations that somebody, if they were looking in the mirror, could say, maybe I'm doing this?
Yeah. There's probably two answers to that. When I first started working with nice guys, I thought every nice guy that I met was just like me. I thought we were all the same. Now I started working on my nice guy stuff before I knew I was working on nice guy stuff. I got into a 12-step group for sex addicts because my wife said I was a sex addict, and quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict. But it was a great place for me to just start. I just started releasing shame. I just started telling stuff I never told anybody about me, and it felt really good. And then I got a therapist, and we started looking at some of my patterns. I learned about boundaries. I learned about telling the truth. I learned about asking for what I wanted. Then I got into a men's group that was led by a female therapist around sexual shame. And I spent about 5 or 6 years in there. And that's where I wrote most of No More Mr. Nice Guy. That's where I learned about my covert contracts. Now, at the same time, I was a marriage therapist. And so guys were coming to me, sometimes with their wives, sometimes with their girlfriends, sometimes on their own. And they were saying things that I could finish their sentences. I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. Her kids are in private school, or I give her everything she wants. When's it going to be my turn? It's never enough. She's never happy. She never wants to have sex anymore. And I go, well, I can finish her sentences. So I started a No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group, and we just started meeting periodic every other week, and I started another one. Now, there's another category of men that I didn't immediately notice. They were also nice guys, but now looking back on it, they were the single guys. Like I said, I kind of view this through relationships.
Sure.
They were the single guys that would say, I got lots of female friends. They all tell me I'm such a nice guy. I listen to them talk about their problems. I'm there for them. They tell me some woman is going to be so lucky to have me someday, but they don't want to be my girlfriend. What's wrong with me? They say they want a nice guy, but they go with the jerks. Well, same category. So as I started working with nice guys, I thought maybe we're all alike. Maybe we all had dad issues like I did. Maybe we all were monogamous to our mothers like I was. Maybe we were brought up with some kind of fundamental religion that taught us to repress our true self and our sexuality. I grew up during angry feminism of the 60s. It said every man's a rapist, and erection's a sign of aggression. I mean, if you think toxic masculinity was bad, you're having that. I don't want to be that guy. So I thought they were all like me. But what I came to realize is there's two types of nice guys. They're all trying to do the same thing, trying to get the external validation, trying to have a smooth life, trying to get love, trying to get sex. But the ones like me, and I'll get back to your question, the ones like me are what I call the I'm so good nice guy. And that is, I do everything right. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I'm not one of those jerks. How come you're not happy? How come you don't want to have sex? How come you're angry all the time? And I'm trying to fix it and make it better. Now, the other one I came to realize is that I'm so bad nice guy. This is the nice guy that probably as a child, maybe had ADHD, maybe had an alcoholic parent, maybe a tumultuous family system, maybe they had abuse issue, got abused. And these are the ones that were probably acting out at an early age, getting in trouble a lot, getting punished a lot, getting kicked out of class, getting kicked out of school. Maybe that continued and they started doing drugs or alcohol at an early age. Maybe they were just fucking up one thing after another. And then finally something happens. They, go in the military and get straightened out, or they meet a woman and or have a kid, or they find Jesus. Something finally says, I got to get my life in order. I got to quit fucking up. I got to be a better guy. And so they start seeking approval and trying to do it right. And they go along to get along, and they put a big lid on, all this stuff that was caused. So they're the I'm so bad nice guy. So while they're trying to do everything right, not so deep inside, just under the surface, they're afraid if anybody really sees me, they'll find out how terrible I really am. Okay. So back to your question. If a person's looking in the mirror and going, I do everything right, how come she's not happy? I do everything expected me at work. I work late. I help everybody else out. How come I get passed over for promotions? How come I got laid off and that jerk kept his job? They're everything outward focused. That's the I'm so good nice guy. I do everything right. Everything should go right. I should be appreciated. I do this. I should get this back. And now the other one, though, looks in the mirror and goes, I knew it. I'm such a fuck up. Everybody can see it. That's why she's mad at me all the time. That's why I didn't get this. They can see I'm. So they're both on the surface look pretty similar, but right beneath the surface. Now, what they are both dealing with is something called toxic shame. And this is the thing that took me a long time to come to understand, because as a I'm so good nice guy, my toxic shame is so locked away deep inside in this tiny little airtight compartment that I don't even know it exists. Now, I'm still driven to prove that I'm good. So there must be something behind that drive to prove I'm good. i.e., a core belief that says I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm not good. I'm bad. I'm unlovable. I'm evil. Whatever. I'm going to get abandoned if people find out. But for the I'm so good, nice guy is way down inside. We don't access it easily. It's everybody else that's causing my problems. I'm so bad, nice guy. Toxic shame is right here. It's floating right at the surface. And we know everybody can see it. We're trying our damnedest to do it right, but we know it's only a matter of time till everybody sees past the facade, and then they're going to leave us or shame us or reject us, whatever it might be. So, yeah, if you're looking in the mirror and blaming everybody else outside of you, or looking in the mirror blaming you, it must be all you. Odds are you are a nice guy. I'm so good, nice guy. I'm so bad, nice guy. Thinking that there is some formula that if you just do it right, get it right, then you will be liked and loved and get your needs met. You'll have a smooth, problem-free life. Everything will go well. But that's the faulty paradigm. And that's based on the 3 covert contracts I talk about in No More Mr. Nice Guy, that if I just get this thing right, everything's going to work right. But the truth of the matter is, life is chaotic. It's tumultuous. Life is a constant state of impermanence. Things manifest, things unmanifest. That's Buddhism 101. We live in a chaotic world. And like going back to the relationship thing I said earlier, if I just do this right, if I get it right, if I get the right woman, if I make her happy, if I do this, then I'm going to get all the love I want, all the sex I want, everything will work right. We can apply the same thing to work and career. But the truth is, that's not how the world works. And going back to something that you said, when the roadmap doesn't work, when that nice guy paradigm doesn't work, we only have one answer: try harder. Double down on it. Do more. Give more. Put up with more. Hide more. Lie more. We just try to do more of what's not already working because we don't have an answer. And then hopefully at some point we hit our bottom, or things break in such a way, or we just finally reach our way, and then we go looking for an answer. And maybe we're lucky enough to get an answer that points us in the right direction.
I liken it to reaching a point where you're trying to carry 7 pounds of water in a 5-pound bucket, right? And I say this because I've felt it and I've been there.
Because you've done it, you've tried it,
and I have. Like, I'm gonna put myself out there a little bit, but I'm so good, nice guy. I have been. That's how I grew up. It took me years to realize.
Anybody that wears a T-shirt that says "Real Legend," of course, he's an "I'm so good, nice guy."
Yeah. But it's like you're sitting right inside my psyche, right? Because this stuff is. You're right. It's deep. It's ingrained. And it started as just this like burning desire to understand, right? But all the things that you said, like having to prove, right, or get it right, these are 2 phrases that over the course of my life that I have recognized within myself. And listen, for better or worse, like it caused me to go further than I thought that I could or even should. And I have realized a fair amount of success in the wake of that, so, my relationship with those feelings is kind of a dichotomy today, but again, you reach that point, and I think that's the point that my listeners need to take away, is that it's not sustainable. You will reach a point.
My phrase for that, is nice guys are being good. They're good at being good, but not great at being great. Because you're right. We're often conscientious enough, approval-seeking enough, that we do well enough often. I had a PhD at 29. That took a little effort to get there. And you probably have accomplished things because you were trying hard to get it right and get the approval and the recognition and prove something. But because of all the other nice guy traits, we actually always have these glass ceilings above us that we're never going to break through, either because of our codependency, our covert contracts, our fear of risk, our fear of disapproval. I mean, there's any number of things. There's our fear of being successful can get in the way of us really living up to our full potential. So like I said, we're good at being good, but not so great at being great.
Yeah. So in the spirit of that, a lot of men confuse being nice with being good, and it quietly costs them.
Or being kind.
Or being kind,
caring.
right? And it costs them. At some point, it costs them. So, where does being nice most often masquerade as virtue when it's actually like fear or avoidance or one of these other things that you talk about?
Yeah. People often, I'm talking to maybe a stranger about, like I'm on an airplane and end up talking about, what do you do? What do you do? And, I said, well, I teach men. What do you teach men? Women are especially interested in that. What do you teach men?
Yeah.
What are men being taught these days? Um, and, when I talk about maybe nice guy syndrome or various things, and people often say, well, you seem like a nice guy. And I go, well, hopefully, I'm a good human being. Hopefully, I'm caring and I'm generous and I'm conscientious and things that I value. But the nice guy is something different, and the two things that I think you can usually take a look at to distinguish the kind person, the caring person, the moral person from the nice guy are shame and anxiety.
Mm.
Now, I mentioned shame already. And so when I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy and just working with a ton of nice guys, I was leading like 5 men's groups a week around nice guys. So I got a lot of good material from all these sessions and just in my own life as well.
Mhm.
I often say that No More Mr. Nice Guy is autobiographical. I just use other guys to tell my story. But when it comes to shame, my story is like I said, as a I'm so good nice guy, I had no concept of shame. And I remember early in my second marriage to my second wife, she was really into self help and therapy. She was like a therapy junkie. But luckily, she got me turned on. I mean, I was already a therapist, but I'd never been to therapy. So, she got me turned on to like self help books. And then eventually, when she said, if you don't go to therapy, I'm leaving you, well, she got me into therapy. So I'm very grateful. But I remember we were lying in bed one night, pretty early in our marriage, and she was reading on her honeymoon. She was reading Women Who Love Too Much. I finally had to say, "Will you just put the book down and just be here with me on our honeymoon?" And so she was reading a book called "Healing the Shame That Binds You" by John Bradshaw. And she's in bed. And she goes, "Oh, this is you. This is you." And I go, "What?" And then so she's reading me this text about shame as this inward, loathing and dislike of self and feeling of unlovableness, and I'm not good enough. And I'm listening to it, and I couldn't even relate to what it was saying. I said, "That's not me. That's you. You're the one that hates yourself. You're the one who hates everything about yourself." And she goes, "No, that's you." Well, not only could I not see how it was me, I really couldn't even grasp the concept of shame or toxic shame or what it was. Now, I'm not an unintelligent person. Like I said, I had a PhD at 29. I can grasp things pretty well. I'm a quick learner. But I couldn't even grasp the concept. That's how much my shame had to stay out of conscious awareness. So over time, through therapy and other things, I go, oh, I see my shame now. I don't want anybody to know that about me. Or I feel like people are going to reject me if they know that. Or people are going to hurt me if they find that out about me. Or I've got to do good enough because otherwise they won't love me. I began to really see where that shame was and where it had come from. Where it came from, a unpredictable critical father, where it came from a codependent mother where I got parentified to be the good man and be different from my father and be there for her. It came from fundamental Christianity that said, you have a capricious, angry God who one little slip up, he's throwing you into hell for all eternity. And I can't tell you how many sermons I heard as a child for how long eternity is and how much it hurts. So, I grew up with, I can't be that bad person. So anything that might be that bad person, I had to not only push it down, I had to be unaware of it. Okay. So nice guys. And so as I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, shame was really the core piece that I was seeing as a foundation of nice guy syndrome. So because of that inner shame, I'm not good enough, or I'm bad, or I'm unlovable, nice guys try to do two things. They try to become what they think other people want them to be liked and loved and get their needs met, so that they're chameleons, always changing, right? No authentic you, no you in there. And they're trying to hide anything that might get a negative reaction from people. Their feelings, their thoughts, their wants, their sexuality, that all gets hidden. So there's no true authentic self there. And we're not even true and authentic with ourselves. We don't know how hard we're trying to please or how much we're hiding. That's all out of toxic shame. And that's why I say early in No More Mr. Nice Guy, find safe people, a coach, a men's group, a 12-step group, a therapist, a minister, whatever. Find a safe person and go start revealing the things about you that you don't want anybody to know about you. When I started doing that in a 12-step group, I couldn't wait to get up once a week and go to that 5 a.m. group because it felt so good to just tell stuff about me that I'd kept hidden and secretive, thoughts, feelings, actions. And I was telling people, and the only reaction I ever got was, "Thank you for sharing, Robert." Nobody ever shamed me or judged me. And they would share even worse stuff than mine. And I didn't judge them or shame them. And I go, why am I shaming me for this stuff? So shame is a core component of it. The other piece that I began to realize a little bit further on down the road, and probably around the time I'd finished writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, I came to realize that anxiety was also a key part of nice guy syndrome. Because, like I said, I was leading several groups a week. And almost, a few times a week, somebody in a group was saying, Robert, talk to us about soothing our anxiety. And so what nice guys do is, because of their shame, because of their attachment issues from childhood, they're walking the planet feeling a sense of anxiety, an anxiety about being found out, an anxiety about not getting it right, an anxiety about getting rejected, anxiety about looking foolish, an anxiety about failing, whatever it might be. That anxiety is right beneath the surface. So everything a nice guy does is trying to manage that anxiety. And I call it managing anxiety versus soothing anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Managing anxiety is when we're trying to get people and situations outside of us to be different so that we can take action or so that we can relax or not feel anxious. Soothing anxiety is the ability to calm our own internal anxiety to where we can take action that frightens us to do what we need to do, rather than trying to manipulate or control the things outside of us. So those are two real key components of nice guy syndrome that tend to drive the bus: the shame and the anxiety.
Yeah, and we're going to get into shame a little bit more throughout this interview. I am curious, when it comes to anxiety, how this shows up often in relationships when both members of the relationship then are highly anxious people, because I happen to know a lot of women who are high anxiety, especially in today's world, and especially if they watch the news, and
do not do that.
Don't
not
do
watch
that.
the
Yeah,
news.
that is the
I've
one
not watched
takeaway.
the news in years.
I haven't either, and anyway. So I imagine that in a relationship, when you have two people that are highly anxious, this must show up in a certain way. And what are the risks?
Another virtue of social media, besides us all being amateur diagnosticians of diagnosing our exes as sociopaths, narcissists, and borderlines, attachment theory is kind of a big meme these days. And I mentioned that, you said you're in Phoenix, and I mentioned I flew there a couple of years ago and did a live interview with Adam Lane Smith, who's kind of, a pretty big voice these days of attachment theory. And he even tells the story that reading No More Mr. Nice Guy while in grad school was the thing that made him go focus on attachment theory. And it was interesting how I first came into contact with Adam Lane Smith is that Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, this is about 4 or 5 years ago, invited me to come on her podcast. And I knew who she was because I'd read 12 Rules for Life. So I knew she was Jordan Peterson's daughter. But I thought, well, why'd she invite me, on her program? I knew she had health issues. She was like carnivore and, So I listened to a couple of her recent interviews. One was like some gym guy from London. And then the other guy was somebody named Adam Lane Smith, who was a psychologist in America, talking about relationships. So I was listening to that interview and got about halfway through it, and they started talking about attachment theory. And he goes, there's one guy in America that's really nailed it. And he goes, he's a fucking genius. He goes, it's Dr. Robert Glover, and he wrote a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I remember turning off. I was listening on my phone to this podcast, and I just laid there on my bed going, oh, that was kind of cool. and I go, now I know why she invited me to come on her program. So I've done 2 or 3 interviews with Adam, and he's been on my program, my men's program. And so there's a lot out there about attachment. And my theory around attachment differs a little bit. And I've run a lot of this by Adam, and he hasn't just outwardly disagreed with it. At least he hasn't, to my face. But in the book Attached, a couple of things that I kind of redefine. And one of them is they talk about, avoidant attachment styles and anxious attachment styles. I think all attachment issues are anxiety based. It makes us anxious to get too close to somebody. Well, we call that avoidant, right? It makes us anxious that we're going to get left by somebody if we're not, always making them happy or pleasing them. Now, I've found, it can also be a little bit challenging to say what our anxious attachment style is, because it can change from relationship to relationship. I've been in a relationship where I was the pursuer, trying to make everything good and try to help the person not leave me. I've been the one where I was more the avoider. No, get away from me. I don't want you around so much. And I can flip even in my current relationship. I can flip to being more of an avoider, more of a pursuer. But they're all based on anxiety, right? They're all based on anxiety of being smothered, losing my freedom, losing control, or being left, or being unloved, or being rejected, or being alone, all based on anxiety. So that's kind of one of my reads on attachment issues, that probably all attachment issues are based on anxiety, and probably throw shame in there as well, right? If I get found out, this will happen. The other thing that I kind of disagree with in the book, but I can't document my disagreement, is that in the book Attachment, they say probably about 50% of people have healthy attachment styles, and they can get in relationship and have healthy long-term relationships and work out problems. And it may be just kind of the work I do for a living, or it may be the women I picked to be in a relationship with, or both. If I had to guess, if I had to pull a number out of my ass, I'd say maybe 10% of the population has healthy attachment style, not 50%. Where those 50%, they're saying half the people out there are good at this shit. I don't see that. I don't see half the people being good at it. I see the majority of the people struggling really badly with it. And, a few people get it right. Yeah, they get it right because maybe they've worked on themselves. They're willing to have real conversations in relationship. They'll do the hard stuff, and maybe they got a little bit lucky in who they happen to land with. So what happens when you get two anxious people in a relationship? You get something that I call the bunny run, and the reason I call it the bunny run is that when I was in private practice, had an office back in the Seattle area, I had a couple of stuffed animals in my office. Sometimes the women just like to hold them while they're doing therapy. But I had two bunnies, and they looked kind of different. I think both of them were maybe from Costco. I don't remember. But I had these two big stuffed bunny rabbits. And what I would do is I'd show individuals, couples, didn't matter, what most people do in relationship. And I'd take the two bunnies and I'd hold them up. And I said, in every relationship, a couple works together, consciously or unconsciously, usually mostly unconscious, to create what I call the intimacy comfort zone. Now, we call it intimacy discomfort zone. Either one works. And what they do, without being aware, is they find somebody else unconsciously, because I'm trained as a systems-oriented family therapist. I don't tend to look at one person's the problem. I see every system, at least that involves adults. Children are a different story. If there's two or more adults in a system, family system, marital system, the system exists exactly the way it does because everybody involved needs it to exist that way. Otherwise, it would be different. If one person actually needed it to be different, it would be different. So it exists the way it does. So when couples come into my office and say, it's her fault, it's his fault, I go, okay. Let's look at why both of you need it to exist exactly the way it does. And I mean, there's so many ways we can come at that. That's a whole book in itself.
Yeah, of course. So the subjectivity
that's a whole 2 years of couples therapy, right? But I show them the bunny run. I said, the two of you both have intimacy issues. Both of you probably have a fear that if you get too close, you'll lose yourself. You'll be smothered. There'll be, loss of identity. And you probably also both have a fear if you're too far apart, you're going to get left, that you're going to be alone. And so most of us humans have both of those fears of being smothered, loss of self, but also loss of connection, loss of companion. Okay. And we need both. We need an individuated self. We need space. We need freedom. We need a self identity. Those are human needs. And we also need connection. We need other people in our life. That's another human need. And one theory of why humans have evolved as much as they have is because anytime a system has conflicting or competing needs or drives or demands, that back and forth friction creates growth of some sort. Okay. So our need to be free and individuals and our need to be connected and part of a whole seem to be competing, contrasting drives, but the fact that they both exist probably has driven us to evolve. Okay. So that means you, I, everybody, even me and my dog, who was in here, but I let her out because she kept barking, right? And there's another theory that says humans have evolved as much as we have because of our companionship with dogs for the last 20,000 years. So anyway, whole other theory. But so we get into relationship and we're now unconsciously trying to get close enough to feel connection and that bonding that we need to get our needs met in this world, to not feel alone, to not feel isolated. So get close enough to get that without so close that we lose our sense of freedom and autonomy and individuality, that we can choose to live our life on our terms. So that's a floating balance, right? And that's always going to be in flux. It's not rigid. So here comes the bunnies, right? The man and woman, woman and woman, man and man, whatever we're talking about here, parent, child, human and dog, we find unconsciously the systemic balance of space. Okay, we're close enough, we're connected. We're far enough apart, we don't feel smothered, trapped, or we've lost ourselves. Now, we find some floating flux of that. It's constantly, being challenged and pushed. Sometimes we have to come together to solve more of a problem, or sometimes we just come together so we want to fuck, whatever it might be. We just want to have a deeper conversation. But have you ever noticed sometimes when you have just really deep intimacy, all of a sudden, boing, right? Yesterday morning, I've got a friend visiting with me for a couple of days. He brought me to Australia to do some workshops there back in October, and he just happened to be passing through Puerto Vallarta. I said, "Okay, come stay with us." My wife had never met him. Yesterday morning, my wife and I are sitting out back having a little breakfast and coffee before we're going to the gym, and she just shares with me. My wife shares with me, I'm just so grateful for the life that I have, the life that you've given me, that we have together. She said, from so much of my life, I worked so hard, raising two kids as a single mom, doing all these jobs, having to go to work when I was sick. My life is just so much different now. And it's just because of you. And I'm so grateful. Sharing that with me. Well, we're at the gym and something comes up, and this is not unusual. My wife's a typical jealous Latina, right? Where some woman seemed to be trying to get my attention at the gym. And she got mad enough at me at the gym. And she's a gym rat. Her gym is her therapy, right? That she actually left the gym. I knew she's mad at me. I finished my workout, came home. She was mad at me the rest of the afternoon. No, I think she's PMSing. And we had a conversation about it later in the day. I said, "Do you think it might be your time of month?" Could be. I said, "You've been kind of sensitive for a couple of days." Could be. So in the morning, I'm so grateful for you. My life is, so much better because I'm with you. 2 hours later, I'm ready to leave. I don't need this. I'm not putting up with this anymore. If you don't want to be with me, if you're always going to be checking out other women, if you're going to be doing that, I don't need that. And so we were like this, right, in the morning, and 2 to 3 hours later, we were way like this, where she's saying she's going to leave me. Okay. Now, this morning, today's the 9th of January, and she likes to celebrate our wedding anniversary the 9th of every month, because we got married the 9th of November. So, yesterday she was going to leave me. And now this morning, I was on a call earlier, and I saw a WhatsApp message come up where she was writing the words up, and I knew she was singing it to me. Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary. That's from the Flintstones, if you ever watched
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So here's now she's sending me messages celebrating happy anniversary on the 9th of January. Okay. So it's like this, right? Now, in general, we don't like it to be like this. That's too much of a rubber band effect. Too much. Right. So we worked really hard to keep it as much like this to where it gets a little bit close. All right, we self-adjust. A little bit too far apart, we self-adjust. So Nala's barking at me again, looking out, and then my dog looking at me like, there's somebody outside. They want in. You're supposed to come let them in. How come you're not? So yeah, again, Nala's going to stay outside because I got other work to do. But there's probably somebody important that needs to be let in. But last time I went and checked, it was a false alarm.
Do you need to check? You good?
No.
Okay.
No, there's enough people working around our house today that somebody can go let.
Okay, gotcha.
So back to the bunnies.
Yeah.
Okay. If this gets too close, one of the bunnies will turn and create some space. Doesn't matter which one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the same one. Most of the time, there's a designated avoider, but one of them will start moving apart. Okay, the designated pursuer gets anxious about that. So what do? They pursue to try to keep that space as close as possible. Okay, now maybe they pursue, but maybe this one, okay, they finally, whatever, they turn back to them. Now all of a sudden, okay, this feels good. Oh, but we're really close again. Now it could be that this one may turn and go the other way. So it can flip-flop back and forth. Now often there is a designated avoider, designated pursuer, but it can change. We can reverse roles with each other. So the point is, we want to blame the other person for whatever's happening. But the truth is, we probably have two anxious, shame-based people trying to get as close as they can without getting too close. And then when they get too far apart, they're going to find ways to push it together. Too close, they're going to find ways to push it apart.
That's great. So I do have other questions I want to answer, but I can't ignore the follow-up question that I have from that conversation, because you explained the scenario with you and your wife, how, she was so grateful in the morning, and then by the afternoon she was upset with you, and then the next day she was great. So I have to ask, what is the role of emotional tension play in both men and women?
For some reason, I've gotten to talk about emotional tension a lot the last few days. I guess in the school of life, since that subject is up for me, I get it demonstrated in front of me, just through living. And the reason why I'm smiling about you bringing up emotional tension is that I've got a course that I call Positive Emotional Tension, directed at men. And I'll tell you more about it in a minute. But I've also started writing a book on the subject. A number of years ago. And then the book's half written, 2/3 written. And I, a couple times, along the way, I've kind of pulled it back out and wanted to, work on it some more. And I just turned 70 a month ago in December. So I thought, the last year I've had to ask myself, a lot of questions. All right, what do I want this final part of my life to look like? How much longer do I have? What do I want to accomplish? How do I want to die complete? And I could die complete. I've accomplished my life's exceeded my expectations, and there's some more books I want to get written. So I thought, well, this one's like 2/3 written. I should finish it. So I'm actually working on a plan to launch a program with I'm just going to call it Pet Masters or something like that for positive emotional tension, and run it for 6 months and get up at 6 a.m. every morning and write for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And just to practice, the last 2 mornings, I've set my alarm at 6 o'clock. I've been up, make my coffee. I've done other work, but I'm just trying to see, can I do that consistently? I'm usually up by 7 anyway. So I'm about 97, 98% sure I'm going to spend the next 6 months finishing that book on emotional tension. So it's a whole nother subject in itself, but you asked, so let's just touch on the surface at least.
Sure.
All right. The basic premise that I have around emotional tension, and we could call it polarity, we could probably call it a lot of different things, is that I'm going to make some generalizations here. And I know generalizations can can be dangerous. I know they can miss the point. But in general, and I've worked with women for many, many years, over 40 years, worked with men, but in general, women have to experience emotional tension in order to be attracted to a man, aroused by a man, and stay attached to him over time. Unfortunately, most men, and especially nice guys, hate emotional tension. And we especially hate it in relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
We're constantly trying to avoid it.
We're avoid it,
Or
we
fix it.
fix it, solve it, make it go away. So men in general are so uncomfortable with emotional tension, even the things we do voluntarily that involve tension. It might be, Sylvester Stallone or Tom Cruise movie. We know it's going to end in less than 2 hours, and we know Sly and Tom are both going to live, right? Our sporting events all have clocks or periods or ending times on them. They don't. I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball, but they even put a clock on baseball, right? They found ways to shorten baseball games. And because men don't like this, we got to know when it's going to end. We'll go do some tension. But even if you think about it, though, even we men, we like some. If you do have a favorite team or sport or whatever, I'm from Seattle, so I've been a Mariners fan for years, and they've sucked for years. They actually were really good this last year. And, been a Seahawk fan. They've been good in the past, but not for a while. They're
good
actually
this
doing
year.
really well this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. I don't know if you saw like Seattle's game against the Rams or against the San Francisco 49ers.
I did. I'm a Bears fan, so we're 2
There
seed,
you
you're
go.
1 seed,
Your game's against
the Packers.
Yours against the Packers, of course, that's coming up this Saturday. And yours with San Francisco, the shootout you guys had a few weeks ago. Yeah, nail biters, right?
Yep.
They keep us on the edge of our seat. But do we want to watch that? I mean, the overtime game that you guys had, the overtime game Seattle had with LA, like this. By the time those games are done, we're exhausted. That's all we can take. That's all we can handle. But the Bears have probably blown out a few teams this year. Seattle's blown out a few teams this year. The blowouts, while we're happy for, I'm glad that was an easy one, but we lose interest. We may even get up more, go get something to eat. We might even turn it off or just come back and check later. So we do like some tension.
Fair enough.
But the feminine swims in tension like a fish swims in the ocean. It just lives it. It breathes it. It is it. I heard David Data say years ago, for the feminine, for women, drama is foreplay. Now, I don't know about you, but I think, a woman's got to be in a good mood if she's going to have sex. You got to keep them in a good mood.
Right.
So we're always doing, as nice guys especially, everything we can to keep them in a good mood. Now, just as an example, going back to my dear wife, who can, be telling me how amazing her life is in the morning, and 2 hours later, she's threatening to leave me, and the next day she's sending me notes to say happy anniversary. To me, I'm going, that's crazy. That's a roller coaster. I don't want that. But that's how they swim. Okay. So like my wife, again, a jealous Latina, for good reason. I understand why Mexican Latina women are jealous. The men are dogs. They lie, they cheat, they cannot be trusted. And the Mexican women, just for sport, will try to get the attention of a man who happens to be with another woman. That's why women at the gym go flaunt their stuff and bend over and, show when they see me come in with they go, I can get that guy's attention. Again, I'm fucking 70 years old and they're 22 and they're trying to get my attention. I'm going, that makes no sense to me, but to my wife, it makes all the sense in the world because that's what they do to each other here in this culture. Right. So there's all that dynamic. So my wife tells me, she goes, I know I'm crazy. I know I'm jealous. I know I blow stuff out of proportion. But she's also told me, when I'm jealous, I'm horny. Cuando estoy celosa, yo estoy caliente. When I'm jealous, I'm hot. Okay. Now my wife's also told me, and she's a dear. There's a reason. There's many reasons why I'm with her. One of them is she's told me, as compared to my second marriage, who said, "Aren't you glad that we don't have to pretend to like sex anymore?" My current wife has told me, "I'll never say no to you for sex. And I'll never say no even if I'm mad at you, because I'm never mad at your cock." So if I have any degree of intelligence, my wife's mad at me. She's jealous. And there's this part of me, I want to fix that. I want to get it back to good. I want to get everything back to calm. I want to get things copacetic. I want to get us back to our intimacy, comfort, discomfort zone. It's too far apart. And as I'm trying to fix it, and I call that putting the wet stuff on the red stuff. An old firefighter friend of mine said that's what the old timers would do. Any fire, they're spraying water on it. Now, sometimes you need to treat them differently. That's what nice guys are doing. When the woman is creating the tension, the emotional tension, we're trying to fix it, get it back to good. But remember, she has to experience emotional tension to be attracted to us, aroused by us, and stay attached to us over time. So if I have any degree of intelligence, which I claim to, but I can be really dumb, I'm trying to fix this mood she's in when really all I have to really do is initiate sex with her, and she's going to be a happy camper. She's going to be a happy bunny rabbit if I'll just initiate sex while she's mad as hell at me, telling me she's going to leave me. "Hey, baby, go upstairs. Take your clothes off. Hey, baby, bend over." If I would just use my male intelligence, I would use the emotional tension to serve me. I wouldn't try to extinguish it. I'd fan the flame a little bit, right? Because she's already told me, it's going to end well. I'll never tell you no. So the feminine needs it. Now, what I tell men, you can either create positive emotional tension, and there's various ways of doing that. Creating polarity, going into a masculine pole, telling her to do something, leading her, moving together and moving apart. And even this thing about, well, she's jealous because, some other woman's trying to get your attention. Well, every woman's in competition with every other woman for the scarce resource of a man's attention. So if another woman's trying to get your attention, that's actually a good thing in terms of tension, because your partner will work harder. I remember an unexpected manifestation of this emotional tension thing. When I started dating in my 40s and 50s, I had been in a marriage that was pretty much sexless for 14 years. I'd gone on antidepressants to deal with an infidelity of my partner in that marriage. They killed my sex drive. So I get out there in the dating world, and all of a sudden, these women were all wanting to have sex with me. And I'm going, what planet have I landed on? But then I was also like, I couldn't always get it up, or I couldn't keep it up. And so I'd struggle with that. And I even avoided sex at times. And I'm going, well, it's me avoiding sex. Finally, it dawned on me, I'll just tell the women. I'll say, hey, sometimes with a new partner, I don't always get an erection, or sometimes I lose the erection. And I just started saying, how about we just get naked, roll around together, and have a good time? No woman ever was upset by that. They go, yeah, sure. Because they're the same thing. They got anxiety. What if my boobs are too saggy, or he sees my stretch marks, or I forgot to shave down there? What if I smell? What if this? I mean, they've got their own world of anxiety going on. That just doesn't show like ours does. Our anxiety shows. If we're in sympathetic nervous system, it doesn't do that.
True.
So once I started telling women this, the nice guy in me almost had some anxiety that I thought, oh, if I tell them sometimes when I'm with a new partner, I don't always get an erection, they're going to think, well, how many women have you been with? How many women are you sleeping with? That's my nice guy thinking they're going to be mad if I tell them if I'm with a new partner. No woman ever did react to that. But what I did notice is after telling them, sometimes with a new partner, I don't always get an erection, or sometimes I don't always keep my erections. What I noticed is every woman worked really hard to be that woman that got me up and kept me up. Why? Emotional tension. They're in competition with every other woman that couldn't get the job done. It's like those bitches couldn't get the job done like I can. So the unexpected, as I told them, I don't always get hard-ons. They worked really hard to make sure I got a hard-on because they were in some competition with every other woman who'd failed before them.
This
right?
is such a foreign concept to,
Of course,
I'm
it's a
sure,
foreign
a
concept. That's
lot
why I
of
got to
people.
finish the book.
It's an amazing way to put it, because listen, and I just have to say, like, you're just as authentic in real life, or at least virtually, as you are in your book, and I truly appreciate that, because it's evident that you practice what you preach, and I think that, where I'm going with that for my audience is they need to fucking listen. Like, this is, there's a
I
lot
love
of
that. What a
people.
great podcaster. People fucking listen.
I mean, listen, that's
Pay
literally your
attention.
only job with
Yeah.
this podcast, is to listen, but I imagine, and again, generalizing, right? I don't want to make assumptions, but there has to be, at least for my listener base, who are majority men, right? Probably 75% men listening to this show, that have struggled or do struggle with something similar to this, right? And they would not dare make mention of it. They would avoid it. They would deny it. They would try it, and then when it didn't work, they get pissed off. There's a whole lot of different ways that they could take it, but saying it up front is not one of them.
So not only would we not talk about ED to a woman we want to have sex with, but we wouldn't do it on an international podcast as well.
Correct.
But believe it or not, is that kind of transparency and authenticity that I found tends to make me really attractive to women. I don't try to get women attracted to me. And my wife is jealous and does see things that doesn't exist, but she also does point out a lot of things that I can see as well that do exist. And again, everywhere we go, not just in Mexico, women in their 20s flirt with me and try to get my attention. And I don't do anything to try to perpetuate it or try to cause it. But the point is the fact that I'm not packing around a lot of anxiety. I'm not packing around a lot of shame. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I enjoy my life. That's attractive to the feminine. Very attractive to the feminine. So I tell men, going back to the emotional tension thing, guys, you can either create positive emotional tension, or she's going to create negative emotional tension, or she's just either going to shut down and leave.
Yeah.
So many times when guys say, why did she ghost me? I say, well, it could be that she's just an unavailable person. And it may be she got bored. She got bored because you're trying to do it right. You're trying to impress her. You're trying to, do this and do that. And she didn't. Nice is boring. Nice guys are boring to women. Our neediness is boring to women. Our anxiety repulses them because anxiety is contagious. So if we're trying to get a woman to like us from our state of anxiety, it's going to actually make her go, why do I feel so bad when I'm around this guy? So I'll kind of pull it back and put a bow on this thing about emotional tension, because again, it could be a whole
Sure.
in-depth discussion. I've got a whole eight-part class on it, and I'm writing a book about it. But here's the thing. In most of culture and society nowadays, we men have no rites of passage. We have no masculine initiation. Even if we just go back 2 or 3 generations of men, most men got some sort of initiation, whether it was learning a trade, going in the military, something initiated them into the masculine world that says, I'm competent, I can get the job done, right? Most of us, I never had that kind of initiation, and like I said, I'm 70. Think about all the millennials and Gen Zs out there, that their initiation is getting a cell phone put in their hand at 2 weeks old, and they've grown up on social media. There's no initiation to that.
No.
But here's the deal. I think understanding and practicing principles of what I call positive emotional tension, they're not manipulative. They're not trying to get a woman to do anything. I think it is not only a powerful masculine initiation, if we actually can learn how to show up and be grounded and stay strong and hold on to ourselves and keep our frame and set the tone and lead in the midst of a feminine storm, any kind of feminine storm, whether it's my dog, Nala barking her head off, my wife telling me she's going to leave me, or just, where the fuck did all my clients go? Whatever that feminine storm is, if we can hold our own, that's powerful masculine initiation. And I think it is also a beautiful gift to give to women and world. If we know how to penetrate women and world masterfully, it is a gift. It makes the world a better place. It makes women better. It makes them happy. As David Data says, we can fuck them to God from this masterful place. And so learning to deal with the emotional tension that the feminine creates for us helps us learn to deal with the emotional tension, the world, which is all feminine. Everything that's not nailed down is feminine. Masculine is this constant, unchanging force, consciousness. Everything else is feminine. Okay. So if we're going to become masterful in our masculine self, deciding to tell basically with the feminine, bring it, bring it all. Come take your best shot. Bring me your most, violent volcano, your biggest hurricane, your biggest storm, your biggest earthquake. Bring it. I'm going to welcome it. I'm going to use it to sharpen me, strengthen me, empower me, and in return, you get penetrated and you get fucked to God. Now, again, a lot of terminology in there, but learning to deal with emotional tension is a powerful masculine initiation and a powerful gift to give to women in the world.
Yeah. All right, we're going to push this conversation forward a little bit. I appreciate that.
Push
it. Yeah.
I'm excited to figure out which direction we're going to push it now.
Let's penetrate it for a little better term.
Let's fuck it to God.
Right on. Okay, so I want to make sure that we get this in because this was one of the pivotal parts of your teachings for me. Most covert contracts are not conscious. They're not thought about. They're like emotional IOUs that men don't realize that they're keeping score on. So what are they? I'll start there. What are they?
Okay. Yeah. If I were to pick up No More Mr. Nice Guy as a nice guy and read it, I believe probably my number one takeaway from the book would be those covert contracts. Because when I was in that men's group I mentioned, coming to really understand all my patterns as a nice guy, somehow that term just floated up in a discussion. And I go, that's it. That's the right term. And I found that, a lot of people have really latched onto it. And even that term has become part of, the vocabulary out there in the world around codependency. So the covert contract, I believe nice guys tend to operate from three basic covert contracts. They're all if-then propositions. They're all fundamentally manipulative. They all come from a sense of powerlessness. And as you said, they're mostly unconscious. Mostly. That's why I say they're covert contracts. And anybody else involved in the agreement doesn't know there's an agreement. They don't know what the contract even exists. So the three basic covert contracts of nice guys. Number one is that if I'm a good guy, then I will be liked and loved. And let's say for a heterosexual male, the women who I want to sleep with will want to sleep with me. Whether that's, a woman that he's just met or might be his wife of many years. So if I'm a good guy, now, okay, what does that even mean? Now, we're of course we think we're good guys, especially if we're an I'm so good nice guy. I'm a good guy. Everybody should like me and love me. The reality is nobody likes and loves everybody, right? Yeah, people I like and love, other people think they're despicable human beings. But, so we're all different. So nobody's going to like and love us. We don't like and love everybody. But nice guys, because of our kind of short-sighted thinking, we go, if I'm just a good guy, I'll be liked and loved by everybody, and especially, and I call this nice guy seduction, if I'm really kind to women and I listen to them talk about their problems and I fix things for them and I pay for things for them and I do nice things for them and I'm different than all the jerks, then they'll want to get naked with me. And especially if I repress my sexual agenda, they'll want to get naked and show me their boobs. Now, the math on that doesn't work, but the nice guy hadn't figured that part. And that was my MO for years. So, number one, if I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved, and the women I desire will desire me back. Okay. Number two, if I meet your needs without you having to ask, then you'll meet my needs without me having to ask. Well, lots of problems with that is number one, I can't really read your mind. And all the stuff I'm giving to you because I'm getting some sense of value out of it. I call that caretaking versus caring. Caring is, oh man, I see you could use something right now. I'll be there for you. And if it seems helpful for you, and if I can give it to you without resentment or strings attached, I'll give it to you. Right? That's caring. Caretaking is I'm giving this to you because it makes me feel good, or I hope you're going to appreciate me for it. Right? There's strings attached to it. And I think I'm reading your mind, but I'm not. I'm just trying to manage my anxiety and shame and get you to like me. And now that I've done my job, I've given to you, you're supposed to read my mind, even though I'm not going to even give you a clue of what I want, because I don't know what I want, because nice guys think they're not supposed to have needs or wants. And that if you do try to give it to me, I'm going to make it difficult because we nice guys are terrible receivers. So, and when you don't read my mind, or when you don't give to me enough back, or when you don't appreciate after all that I've done for you, how many times have I said that, right? How come you don't love me? I got to interview Gary Chapman a year or so ago on my men's program. He wrote the 5 love languages.
Hmm.
And he says, there's 5 love languages. And see if I can remember, time spent, words of affection, physical contact, gifts, one other one. And he's a former Baptist minister, so I kind of cleaned my language up a little bit while interviewing him. And I said, I think my wife's love language is just fuck me. And I said, my love language is just fucking be happy. I cleaned my language up.
Yeah.
Because that's me. I've given all this to you. Why can't you just be happy?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but it's a covert contract. After all I've done for you, why can't you just be happy? Give this back to me. Right? So that's covert contract number 2. Covert contract number 3 is that if I do everything right, then I'll have a smooth, problem-free life. But again, who does everything right? I mean, every major religious institution says everybody falls short of the glory of God. All are sinners, right? There's needs for a mediator. None of us get it right. But the nice guy is both, the player, the referee, the umpire, the scorekeeper, everything. Look at all the things I've got a scoreboard right here in my living room. Look at all the things I've done right. My life is Peter Panish. Again, things should go right. But again, life is chaotic. Life is difficult. Life is hard. Nothing goes right. How come I'm sick? How come I had that accident? How come you're mad at me? I didn't deserve that. How come I got fired? None of this stuff should go wrong because I've done everything right. Now, people will say, well, how do you know if you're using covert contracts? Well, the way you usually know is usually you're pretty frustrated with life, but you often feel like a victim, and you're often resentful, even rageful, because I should get my end of the contract. How come this person doesn't? How come life doesn't? How come God doesn't keep their end of the contract? So these covert contracts are one of the primary reasons nice guys are often anything but nice, and they keep us really helpless and really manipulative and feeling like victims and done to, and when are we ever going to get what we want?
So what would you say the covert contract is that causes the most long-term damage to, let's say, a man's self-respect?
I found with most nice guys, most can relate to one of the 3 stronger than the other.
Sure.
Most will say, yeah, I do all 3 of those, but number 1, that's me. I'm all about nice guy seduction. I'm always doing this for people, hoping they'll like me back. Or I'm such a giver. I give all the time, but I never get much in return. Or the other one is, how come my life just doesn't go the way I want? I do everything right, blah, blah. So they all show up. Now, I do all 3. And a lot of nice guys tend to do all 3. I think if I had to pick mine, it would probably be number 2. Look at all that I've given to you. How come you don't appreciate me back or give back? But again, I'm a terrible receiver, as most nice guys are. Every woman I've ever been with that says, Robert, you're difficult to give to. For at least the last 20 years, I've been working at being a good receiver. And it is work. I've been working at giving to myself. I've been working at surrounding myself with people who want to give to me.
Yeah.
And it's paid off. I mean, it's paid off beautifully. So go back. What was your question about that again? State it again so I can come back to answer it.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it, at least for you. I was just asking, which one causes the most long-term damage to a man's self-respect?
All of them are going to take a toll. And so I think it probably just depends on the guy. And probably your people listening to this probably will go, oh, yeah. Number 1, that's me.
Yeah.
Or 3, that's me. They'll probably be picking one out. Yep. The others probably show up, but one probably stands out more.
I bounce between 2 and 3, and I've felt each and every one of them, as I'm sure most men have, But I think if I'm being honest, and I'm picking one that has done the most damage to me over the years, it's either 2 or 3, probably 3, right? Doing everything right.
Well,
Like,
give an example. What is your right behaviors, and what
oh,
are you
dude.
expecting in return?
Oh, dude. Okay, you put me on the
I
spot.
always love to
No,
turn it
this
a
is
little bit.
great. So
I
okay,
do make
I
my
would
living at
say
asking people questions too. So
no, I appreciate it. I really appreciate you turning that around. So I would say, probably the biggest thing is like doing the. I'll pick a topical one. Doing the duties around the house, right?
okay,
Like. All, don't worry, honey. I'll wash the dishes. Don't worry, honey. I will take care of the kids. I'll take the trash out. I'll do this thing with the dog. I'll make the bed. I'll fold the clothes. I'll do the laundry. I'm trying to help. I'm doing it right.
you're doing right. You're being the good
I'm
man.
being the model husband.
Oh,
Okay,
there you
but
go. Oh, we need to get you some kind of designation, some kind of wall plaque or
yeah, that's right.
something, a
Trophy would be
trophy
great.
cup,
Yeah,
model husband.
Ooh,
I'm sure those
it'd be
trophies
wonderful.
exist.
I'll put it on the shelf.
I'm sure you could walk into any trophy store and you'll probably get to find a model husband trophy that already exists.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Covert contract.
That's exactly right. And I think that in return, my expectation was, I mean, it varied, right? But my expectation was, okay, you should be grateful. You should be in a good
Of
mood. You
course.
should want to have sex. You should, I mean, there was a bunch of them, right? And it's all unconscious, like we were
All
just talking about.
unspoken.
Yeah,
Unspoken.
yeah. So,
A quote I heard a year or so ago that just resonated with me is from Neil Strauss, who wrote the book, The Game, The Truth.
I know exactly what quote you're going to say.
You know, it is that, and when I heard it, I thought that nails it. Unexpressed expectations are premeditated resentments. That nails covert contracts, just nails it. I thought, as soon as I heard that, I had to have whoever it was repeat it again. I've heard it multiple times since then.
Yeah.
And it just gets it so well. If you don't express what you want, what you expect, you are going to be resentful when things don't go the way you want them to go. So
Yeah.
what if you told your wife, dear, I'm working hard to be a model husband, and here's exactly what I expect in return from you. Well, now you've got some expectations expressed. She can say, here's what I could respond with, but don't expect to get this from me. Okay, now you know it's out there on the table. It's at least an overt contract now. So spoken agreement or expectation. You still may have some disappointments, but hopefully you won't be carrying around all these resentments that I did all this for you. Look at my trophy. I'm the model husband. Why can't you be the model wife?
Yeah.
It's only fair.
Yeah. So for my audience, is there a way or any examples that you can give about how this might show up outside of a relationship, like either in leadership or a work environment?
It shows up in work all the time. I've got a course called "Nice Guys Don't Finish Last; They Rot in Middle Management," and actually, it's my oldest course. I wrote it right before No More Mr. Nice Guy got published. Barnes and Noble was publishing the book, and they had something they called Barnes and Noble University, and they had authors teach courses. It was the most popular course on their platform till they quit doing it. So then I just started offering the course myself. But the basic premise is that nice guys in the workplace, nowadays nobody works for anybody anymore. Everybody's entrepreneur, right? Everybody's digital nomad. I'm not going to work for the man. Yeah. So, but I haven't for years, so I can't point fingers. But whether you're working in a corporate environment or you're working for yourself, I tell people I've got a real asshole for a boss. It's me. So it doesn't matter what the context is. Our codependency can show up in so many ways. It could be in deceptive productivity. Oh yeah, I've been busy all day. I've been working all day long. Well, did you check off that thing on your list that's been there for 2 weeks that really needs to get done for you to move forward? I'll get to that tomorrow. All right. So it's a deceptive productivity, a lot of procrastination of the things that we don't know how to do, or we're not interested in, or unknown, or it scares us. Fear of success. Well, what if I do launch my new coaching business? And what if I do write the book? I had to go back to therapy just to finish No More Mr. Nice Guy, because the anxieties I had about it, all the way from what if nobody cares, to what if it is a big success and I go on Oprah and I lose all control of my time and now I have a spotlight on me 24/7. I had to
Yeah.
get back into therapy just to finish the book. Or it may be the ways we're codependent, where we're helping everybody else out. So, like maybe you're in the workplace and you're part of a team, and one person is lagging behind, so you go focus on them to get them up to speed, but the things you're doing aren't getting done. Or maybe you're in a meeting and you don't want to speak out or share an opinion because it might rock the boat, or it might be unpopular, or you know you you don't know what might happen. Or let's say you work from home and you have this desire to be the ideal dad, and you have work that you need to get done. But, I'll go get those dishes done first. She'll
Yeah.
appreciate that. Or, she seemed really stressed today. I'll pick some stuff up, or I'll tell her, don't worry, dear, I'll make dinner. And all of a sudden, you're not doing that harder thing that would really launch your business or really resolve something, to break up a log jam, to move you forward. So it can show up in all kinds of different ways. Again, from the deceptive productivity, from the procrastination, from majoring in minors and minoring in the majors, from trying to get approval or validation or avoid rejection or fear of success or fear of failure. So it can show up in a lot of different ways.
All right. I appreciate that. And I know my audience will too. I want to check in. We've got about 15 minutes left, but I want to be respectful of your time. If we go over a little bit, do you have the time or do you have a hard stop?
I can go up to the time that we talked about in a few minutes over, but I do have something 30
You
minutes
bet.
after that.
You bet. Okay. I won't keep you very long. So
Thank you for asking.
yeah, of course. So I want to touch on masculinity just a little bit here.
That sounds a little bit perverse, but okay. You can
Yeah,
touch
sure.
on masculinity. Let's go there.
Sure. So a lot of men, they read your work and they try to stop being nice by becoming harder or more dominant. Why does so many men swing from nice guy to this performative toughness instead of like landing somewhere integrated?
Okay. That's a good question. And it's a very logical question and a very logical process. Um, here's my view of it. Guys will read my book, or they'll get my information, and they'll say something like, Robert, I realize being a nice guy isn't working for me. Being the wussy doormat, no boundaries, people walk on me. But I don't want to be the asshole jerk either. I need to find somewhere between those two extremes. And my answer is, I don't know what the tipping point is between two toxic extremes. I don't believe there is one. And as you said, sometimes they just do the opposite. And they go from, oh, I'll just be a nice guy, I'll go be the asshole. That's the answer to it. And as I've always said, and I got this phrase, the opposite of crazy is still crazy. Because if you're being a nice guy for dysfunctional reasons, just being the opposite of that, you're just being the opposite of a dysfunctional thing, which still makes you dysfunctional. And just as a sidelight, one time I was writing something about that phrase, the opposite of crazy is still crazy. And I got it from 12-step programs, but I wanted to attribute the quote. So I Googled who said the opposite of crazy is still crazy. And it came up from some Reddit thing. Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, said the opposite of crazy is still crazy. So I gave myself a reference. So just doing the opposite isn't the answer. Finding something in the middle isn't the answer. And the basic reason why, let's go back to the shame and anxiety we talked about earlier. I think in some ways, the nice guy, wussy doormat, asshole jerk are on the same continuum of the same issue. They're both trying to manage their anxiety and shame. They're both in what we call sympathetic nervous system, is fight, flight, freeze. They're always activated. But I think the nice guy dealing with sympathetic nervous system, like I said, managing anxiety versus soothing it. They manage their anxiety through the flee and the freeze, and we could add fawn into that. Oh yeah, you're great, you're amazing. I'll make it better. So they're fleeing or freezing to deal with their anxiety, to manage anxiety and shame. The jerk, the asshole jerk over here, is managing their anxiety through fighting, being aggressive, being oppressive, being dominant, being controlling. Okay. It's just the same continuum of sympathetic nervous system. So finding something in between doesn't fix anything. You're still in sympathetic nervous system. Going one extreme or the other doesn't fix anything. I say we have to basically rise up And when I talk about being an integrated man, it's about integrating all aspects of ourselves, the dark, the light, the good, the bad, the part we don't want anybody to see with the part we want everybody to see. Let's integrate it where we can look at it, get comfortable with it, and let the world see it. So for me, becoming an integrated man involves a number of things. Like one, we've talked about shame, finding the safe people and telling the things you don't want people to know about you. I still do that to this day. I still have safe people in my life. I have a men's group I've been in for 7 years. We still get together regularly and reveal the things we don't want people to know about us. Okay. Revealing shame, learning to soothe ourselves. All right. We can keep, letting anxiety control us, or we can keep trying to manage it through fight, flight, freeze, whatever. Or we can soothe our anxiety. We can learn to breathe. We can learn to ground ourselves. We can learn to meditate. We can learn to be in the moment. We can learn to do the things that let us deal with everything that's coming at us. We can learn to be differentiated rather than fused. Differentiated, we were talking earlier, I didn't give my definition, but it's the ability to ask yourself, what do you want? And then follow through on it, even when there's resistance between your own ears and neurotic guilt or anxiety, or change back messages from the people around you. You're going to give dad a heart attack. You're making mom cry. You're going to lose your job. You're going to embarrass you. Differentiation is that ability to be yourself. Having boundaries allow you to get close to people, allow you to say, this is okay, this isn't. Learning to ask for what you want, learning to be a good receiver, learning to surround yourself with people who want to give to you. All of those are the integrated, acting on what you believe to be right and true, risking, getting out of your comfort zone. That's how we become the integrated man. Not just, doing more of this, flipping over here, or finding some tipping point between the two extremes. So it takes a very different look than what people might expect at first. Because, I know when the book first came out, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Barnes & Noble, the publisher, I think was hoping there'd be a blowback to it, a resistance. Maybe women would get up in arms about the title of it. There hasn't ever been, because I'm basically teaching, nice guys to be good men, right?
Yeah.
And most women aren't going to complain about that. But it does make sense. Why would a man write a book telling men how to be not nice? There's enough not nice men out there. But I'm not teaching men to be not nice. I'm teaching them to quit trying to be a nice guy in your manipulative, covert contract ways. Become authentic, become honest. That's also one of those other keys for integrated male. Let's get honest. Let's get authentic. Let's get transparent. And let's work at getting that, not getting perfect, not getting it right, but, progress, not perfection. And let's surround ourselves with people to support us in that process and not try to do it all by ourselves.
There's a lot of noise around masculinity right now in the news and social media, and it just all feels so reactive, right? And cyclical also. But
everything in the media.
Sure.
Let's go back to football. All right. Caleb Williams, people, he's this or he's that, or he can't play within the system, or, all the Caleb, the painted fingernails even. Blah, 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 all that noise. Or Seattle, Sam Darnold, he can't win the big game. He folds under pressure, blah, 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 blah. That's just simple little lazy narratives, because people can't deal with holding, okay, Caleb Williams has strengths and he has weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Donaldson has strengths and he has weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
I would take either one of them as my quarterback. I'll take either one of them with their strengths and their weaknesses. So anytime the media, social media gets involved with, spouting, or you watch Stephen A or whatever, ESPN, all that, they got their strong opinions, or, what the fuck? Nobody knows how these games are all going to end on Saturday and Sunday. Because if we all really knew how the games were going to end, we wouldn't even play them.
Right.
But guess what? We play them because nobody really knows how they're going to turn out. Is Caleb Williamson going to, run for those extras and throw a bomb and win it? Or Sam Darnoldson going to throw 4 interceptions? We don't know. That's why we watch. But everybody thinks they know. They know. So masculinity, all that is same thing. This, that, blah, blah. Noise.
Robert, what is a truth that took you years to fully understand but changed everything once you did?
That was one of the other questions you sent me. I'm glad you. I think the one that I'd have to say, at least I sit with it right now, is that honesty solves everything.
Mm.
I thought, oh no, if they're mad at you, this, or, if they find that out, or, tell them this, but not that, or make this impression on them, or don't let them know this about you. And the funny thing is, the more honest I am, the more I talk about not getting erections, the more blowjobs I got. The more I talk about, on a podcast talking about ED, the more people go, I'm going to go buy his book. I can relate to that guy. He's real. So just getting honest has made life easier. You're not putting out so many fires. You're not under stress thinking, what if something goes wrong? What if I get found out? Um, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in a men's program for 5 or 6 years with a coach named John Wineland. And really, it just helped me so much in so many ways. And the men's group I'm in now, I created from that. But he gave me an assignment. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And he said, Robert, make a brag video and post it to the group. So about 60 guys in our program. And it took me forever. I put it off just to hold up my camera and brag, hold up my phone and just talk to it and brag about me. And finally, when I did it, I just had fun with it, kind of got a rapper's attitude, and basically said, all right, motherfuckers, here's who I am. I've written one of the best-selling books for men out there. It's on our program's reading list. Is your book on our program reading list, motherfuckers? I've got a house in Mexico. I bought this house, paid for it in 3 years. It's got 5 bathrooms. You got 5 bathrooms, motherfuckers? It's got a swimming pool. You got a swimming pool, motherfucker? I said, my wife is 22 years younger than me, and she said she'll never say no to me for sex. And she says even if she's mad at me, she's not mad at my cock. Your woman saying that to you, motherfucker? And I made this video. It's probably about 3 or 4 minutes of just bragging about my life, how fucking good it is, what I've accomplished, what. And I posted that. I mean, it was like going to get a root canal to get around to doing it. And even when I posted it, I had kind of a lot of it. And I tell you what, it lit the group up. Wow. Everybody was, Robert, I love that. Robert, that's fucking amazing. Robert, I love you so much. Robert, you're the best. Robert, you're the greatest. And I'm going, huh? I thought I had to be modest. And I thought I could never blow my own horn. I can't draw attention to myself. Be nice. Don't always put everybody up. And when I finally just blew my own horn and, didn't hold anything back, people loved me more. And I thought, And it's funny, I tell guys all the time, for example, women can handle a difficult truth. They just can't handle being lied to. Because you tell a woman a difficult truth, they go, I know that was a difficult truth. It pisses me off and I don't like it, but it tells me I can really trust him because he told me a difficult truth.
Yeah.
So, it's just the more I've just told the truth, just been honest, just said, here I am. This is what you see is what you get. That has made life easier, made relationship easier. It's made me more popular. It's made me more attractive. It's made me happier. So that's the thing. I thought, well, if you tell the truth, you got all hell to pay for it. When I finally realized, no, you tell the truth, life gets easier and more fun and more sex and more blowjobs.
Amazing. One more question, and then we'll move to close.
Oh, we don't end on blowjobs? That
we don't end on blowjobs.
Mic drop? Okay.
That's my other show. Okay. What is one question that you wish more people would ask you? And then how would you answer that? Yeah. Of all those 3 questions you sent me, I mean, they're all good because they're all really, So here's how I'd answer that one today is I wish people would ask me is, what is it like to die and what do I have to do to get ready? I almost died 8 years ago, about this time, 8 years ago. I had a tumor blocking my small intestine and went to a lot of doctors here in Mexico, up in the States, Seattle. Nobody could find what was wrong. I got misdiagnosed. I got all the wrong treatments. I even got acupuncture. I had a tumor blocking my small intestine. And over a period of about 3 months, I lost well over 30 pounds. I couldn't eat. I couldn't shit. It got where I was sleeping all the time. I was dying. It was killing me. It would have ruptured my intestine or blocked it. I would have just died. And nobody could find out what was wrong. And I was in pain all the time. I felt like I had a bowling ball in my stomach, constant spasms and pains. And I didn't know, is this just old age? Am I getting old?
Is this, an infection? Is it a parasite? Is it an ulcer? Is it colitis? Is it? I didn't know, and that was the hardest part. I really came to the conclusion it was killing me, and I was going to die, but I didn't know why. That was the hardest part. Even if I'd known what was wrong, it would have made it easier. And at one point, I surrendered to two things. I surrendered to the pain. I couldn't make it go away. It was just constant. I realized later, the more I ate, the more I hurt because I couldn't eat much. And now it makes sense. I put food in my, intestine. It couldn't get through. Um, and I'd have good days and bad days. And people say, Robert, how you feeling? And I go, I don't know if I'm getting better or just getting better at feeling bad. Well, I was getting better at feeling bad because I wasn't better. But surrendering into the pain, I learned to just breathe into it. So many nights I'd finally fall asleep just breathing into it rather than resisting it. And then finally, when I realized it was probably gonna kill me, that my mother was going to watch another one of her children die, that my wife, who I'd been married to less than a year, was going to watch her husband die, my stepkids, my son, my granddaughter, were all going to watch me die. And that's painful. Here's one thing I'll tell you. It is easier to die than it is to watch somebody you care about die. I watched the people around me just in pain. I got where I could deal with the pain. I knew I was going to die. Okay. When everything played out, that my wife actually found the right doctor down here in Vallarta. He ran the right test. He told me what was wrong. He said, we need to do surgery. We need to do it now. I said, give me 48 hours. Let me go home and hide the porn. That's actually just a joke. I wanted at least somebody to know what all my passwords were, where the money was. And when they wheeled me into surgery in Mexican hospital, Mexican doctors, I was as much peace as I've ever been with in my life. I was ready. The IV with the Valium probably helped that to some degree, but I was at peace. And when I woke up in the recovery room, woke up still under anesthesia, I thought, I'm alive, good. And immediately, even while still doped up, I thought, I'm back. I'm back. My mind felt clear for the first time. I felt me again. And at night, I was awake all night in the hospital room, reorganizing my website, my business offerings, my life. And I tell you what, when you faced death and you realize I'm going to die, and you're not dead yet, you're playing on house money. You can take the big risk. You can go for the big play. You can get out of your comfort zone. You can tell people the truth. You can let people mad at you. You can set the hard boundaries because you know you're going to die, and you know that you can handle it because you've been there. So I'm a big fan of people learning to deal with the reality of death. Go to funerals, be around dying people. We try to hide it in our culture. Meditate on death. See yourself, you can do death meditation. See yourself lying in a coffin. Everything's dark, everything's black. I've meditated on just swirling through the cosmos, being one with the cosmos. Let's just get real. We're going to die. That's one of the things about turning 70 I've kind of struggled with in the last year. My mother turned 90 this year. My son turned 40. My granddaughter graduated high school. All kinds of milestones. And I go, how many people am I going to watch die before I die? When am I going to die? Am I going to be sick for 15 years? Or will I be in decent health for the next 30 years? A lot of unknowns there. But you know what? I'm good. I'm ready. I can get up every day and get what I need to get done because I want to get it done. And know when I die, I'll be complete. I'll be done.
You've got no idea the impact that answer has on me. So thank you for that, Robert.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you? Where can they find your work?
I'm in Puerto Vallarta. So they can find me down here. Just come on by. People say, Robert, I'm coming through Puerto Vallarta. Yeah, can I come see you? Well, my wife always says, are they wanting to come stay here or are they just wanting to see you? And the one who's staying with me right now, I didn't know he wanted to stay here until he landed at the airport, a couple of days ago. So, Robert, can you come pick me up? No, I got calls. I said, good, I'll get an Uber. Where do you live? And I go, what's your plan? He goes, well, I was going to come stay with you for a few days. And I go, we could have talked about that. So I'm in Puerto Vallarta. But if they want to find me online, drglover.com has my courses, my workshops, my programs, and integrationnation.net is my men's membership program. And so either way, they can find my stuff there, and they can find all my books on Amazon.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, man. I know how busy you are, but it is and has been a pleasure.
Josh, this has been fun. Thank you so much.